Happy Saturday and welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. What is the catchiest or the coolest political ads you've ever heard? I'm not talking about ad hominem or incendiary political rhetoric, but like what is the catchiest political ad you've ever heard? Did it rhyme? Did it have like a good catchy song? Probably not, because the ads going up to noun in the 21st century has essentially become about, attacking others and everything, because it's a reflection of our politics. But back in the 1950s, ads were not like that. Back in the 1950s, they had these incredible ads that had very, very catchy songs. And in the 1952 presidential election, it turns out, there were two candidates running for president, Dwight D. Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson. And Dwight D. Eisenhower's nickname was Ike. And in the 1952 presidential elections, Ike released his campaign ad. Check it out.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John
or Dean
or Harry. Let's do that big job right. Just get in step with the guy that's hep. Get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We got to get where we are going. Travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way. We'll all go with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington. We'll take Ike to Washington.
Now is the time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country. Vote for Eisenhower.
It's time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country. See, catchy, right? Ike for president. Meaning go vote, basically go vote. That was the 1950s way of getting people motivated to get out and to go vote. You want to get people involved in politics? Make the ad catchy. Also make it visually interactive in a way. So the 1952 presidential elections had some of the best campaign ads in political history. It is not up for debate. But Ike, Dwight D. Eisenhower, went on to win that election and he became the president of the United States. And before Ike got into politics, he had previously served as a 5-star general and the Supreme Allied Commander during World War II. So he was deeply familiar with the military and held it in high regard. But he also believed in civilian control of the military and avoiding unnecessary displays of power. And so lo and behold, 1950s America, we were standing tall on the world stage. We had emerged from World War II as a superpower. And now facing down the Cold War, we were locked in a tense stare down with the Soviet Union. Patriotic fervor was high. The military was strong. So some officials believed it was time to show it all off. It was time for the United States to take up this position of self-aggrandizing pride, in a sense. And so they approached President Dwight D. Eisenhower with an idea. Let's hold a grand military parade in Washington, D.C. Tanks, missiles, troops, all the things. Let's have troops march down Pennsylvania Avenue. And let's have it be a public display of American might meant to intimidate the enemy. If the Soviets want to be all big and bad, in holding all their military parades and showing off all their force, sure, we can do the same thing here at home too. We can do the same thing here in the United States. Now, again, Eisenhower wasn't just any president. He was the Supreme Allied Commander who led the D-Day invasion, a 5-star general, a man who commanded the largest military force in history. If anyone had the credentials to celebrate military strength and be prideful, it was Ike. But he said no. No, we're not going to do that. President Dwight D. Eisenhower told his staff, quote, "We are not a militaristic nation." And because for old Ike, the strength of America wasn't measured by parade columns or missile flyovers as we saw in Russia during the time, as we saw in the Soviet Union, as we saw other authoritarian countries do. It was measured in restraint, in democratic values, in civilian control over the military. He believed that parades like that were the mark of authoritarian regimes, not the land of the free. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, for what it's worth, was deeply concerned about. He ultimately, when he left office, he was concerned essentially about the military-industrial complex. People merging profit with war, and then people becoming obsessed with war and government, and then us starting forever wars. That's something that ultimately did happen. But the core message of what he said there is important. It is key. I mean, in the United States, we do not hold military parades to celebrate the leader. That's something that we see in dictatorships, in Russia, in North Korea. We do not see that here in the United States. But today, on Donald Trump's birthday, he is planning to hold a huge military parade. Tanks and equipment have already arrived in D.C. ahead of this, as well as troops. Here they are practicing for the parade. According to the Army, the parade is going to cost taxpayers a whopping $45 million. $45 million. Think about what this means for us as a country. Think about what this means for us and what this means in a moment where someone has become president of the United States after saying they want to be a dictator. They have disregarded the rulings of federal judges in this court, in this country, as well as the highest court in the land. They have flirted with the possibility of a flat out getting rid of due process in this country. They have no regard or respect for the Constitution of the United States. They have said that protesters will be met with heavy force, even though that is a right protected in the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. And it cannot be lost on us that this president has federalized the California National Guard, overstepping the governor of California. Yesterday, it was clear earlier this week that a federal judge had a ruling calling this illegal, essentially saying that the United States was looking at a monarchy here. But of course, an appeals court reversed that federal judge's ruling. The National Guard will now stay in LA temporarily. 200 Marines are now in the city of Los Angeles as of right now. And we're seeing images like this, Marines detaining civilians here in the United States. Now, and of course, the troops that are in Los Angeles are authorized to detain people who pose a threat to federal personnel or property, but only until police can arrest them. This is the image that we are facing as a country. Active duty troops being sent into American cities, deployed against American civilians, detaining them. And you see that headline there from the LA Times. Marines sent into LA amid the No King's Day protest. We're not having active duty military troops sent into American cities essentially to quell protest, to stop protests from happening in this country. Think about what that means for us. I mean, in the state of Texas, the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, says, oh yeah, we're going to have the National Guard on standby. We're going to have the National Guard ready because just in case the protests get out of hand. Protesting is a constitutional right. In the state of Missouri, same thing there with their governor as well. In the state of Florida, they're getting more heavy here with threatening peaceful protesters.
So I'm gonna break it down for you, all right? And if somebody wants to know what I mean by turn violent, all right, this is what I mean. If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, We will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
Graveyard dead. Graveyard dead. That is the language coming out of officials out of the state of Florida. If you protest in the state of Florida, if protests become violent, that's what's going to happen. But they're not using language like that for just, people who become violent. They're using language like that to really deter people from protesting at all. This is the United States right now. On Thursday, federal law enforcement arrested Alejandro Orellana for allegedly distributing face shields to, quote, suspected rioters. End quote. According to the Trumpian U.S. attorney who brought these charges, they are moving quickly to, quote, identify and arrest those involved in organizing and supporting civil disorder in Los Angeles. Just so we're clear here, this is a civilian being arrested for giving protesters masks because tear gas and other chemical gases are being thrown into the crowd. There is now a Free Alejandro movement underway. This has been a wild week in the United States. It has been a wild time to be a journalist. It has been a wild time to be alive. And yes, the authoritarian actions of this administration has been vast this week. I mean, it's not just been the ICE raids, the multiple ICE raids that are continuing across the country, but it has also been the forcible removal of a U.S. senator at a press conference where the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Los Angeles District Attorney is present, removing him forcibly, and then handcuffing him on the ground. It has also been scenes like this.
No, these guys are literally based off of skin color.
And scenes like this.
The field you see behind me earlier this morning, in fact, according to a couple of farm workers we had a chance to talk to, ICE agents arrived right around 6 o'clock this morning. Cell phone video that was posted online right after the raid show ICE agents chasing after some of the workers. ICE hasn't said how many people they detained at this raid earlier today. The agriculture industry in Ventura County is a $2 billion a year industry. That's billion with the B. So raids like this could have a significant impact on what's planted and picked here.
This is the United States at this current moment. And yes, there is a lot going on. But one of the things that I always say, and one of the things that is always true when it comes to just the history of looking at this, is that mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. That is the only conceivable way to get through this time, to get through this period. And so, yes, today is no King's Day. It is Donald Trump's birthday, and he's holding a huge military parade. A military parade essentially in a style of a dictatorship. He likes this kind of stuff. He thinks it makes him look strong, even though it's a sign of weakness. But here we are. And so in the face of this, the country has rallied together to hold major protests all across the country. No King's Day. No King's Day. Look at this. More than 2,000 protests are planned for today, and they are happening right now all across the country. That is incredible. Mass resistance always defeats authoritarianism. I had the honor of interviewing two protesters here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. These were those interviews earlier that I interviewed them yesterday. Today is on Saturday. These were those interviews. Joining me now for the interview is Emma Wozniak. She is a political activist who has been active in protesting for years, and she'll be at the No King's Day protest tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So there have been approximately 2,000 protests scheduled for tomorrow. This has been yet another authoritarian week in the Trump presidency, from the ICE raids to cracking down on peaceful protesters, a U.S. senator being forcibly removed from a press conference. And tomorrow Trump is going to be holding a huge military day parade to celebrate him. What do you make of just what's happened so far, and what do you expect the reaction to be at the protest tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. I would first like to just make people aware, because I don't think that this is something that, at least it's not something that I was aware of. Military birthday parades are commonly associated with countries like North Korea. They aren't something that most countries have. They're associated with dictatorships and fascism. So the fact that we're having a military birthday parade at all should be a concern. I am really proud of all of the people who have signed up to protest and who are planning to protest. I have several friends who are going to be able to come out Saturday and who are advocating for change that way. And I've had other people reach out and donate funds to buy water and snacks for people who are protesting since they cannot attend. I genuinely think that the protests this Saturday are going to be people advocating for change and people actually wanting to make a difference, people who are ready to defend democracy. I do pray for the safety of everyone, as Trump has made public claims to meet any protesters with violence. He wasn't referring to rioters. He just said anyone who protests this Saturday will be met with violence. And those are threats to our democracy and more of a reason why we should be protesting. So I pray for the safety of everyone involved, and I'll be there with you.
What message do you want the public and elected officials to take from this protest as the resistance movement is growing? I know there have been calls for, elected officials and leaders to do more in this moment. What message do you hope that they take away from this?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just urge them to hear us and to be there with us, to actually hear what we're saying at these protests. Based on the number of people who have signed up alone, there are so many people who want change. And like you mentioned earlier, there are people there are political officials who are being arrested for speaking out about these issues, which I think is even more of a reason why we should be speaking out. That's not something that's okay and not something that's normal. I just urge them to listen to what the people have to say, because America is for the people.
Have you seen growing support for this cause in your community or online with people organizing?
Absolutely. I'm going to be so completely honest. Before I started posting about these protests happening, I thought that I was completely alone. It was actually me talking about it more that I was able to either convince people to come out, or I found other people who were also attending these protests. So to anyone who's feeling alone and feels like there aren't people in your area, I'd encourage you to reach out and speak out about these things. I know it can be scary, especially if you live in more southern areas that have a more Republican heavy, Trump supporting heavy demographic, but there are other people who are protesting and who are going to be there with you. You just need to find them.
What do you say to those who don't believe, which is insane though, who don't believe that this is an existential moment? We've already seen so much happen that points to a crisis. What do you say to those who don't believe that the crisis is here yet?
I would encourage them to watch more local not just news, but people who are on the front lines of these protests. That's one of the best ways to stay informed. Oftentimes the media can twist a narrative to fit whatever they're wanting to promote at the time. But if you watch videos of people who were actually there at these protests, it is a great way to stay informed. Watch videos of immigrants who are telling their story, who came here legally, and they talk about how difficult the process is and the many loopholes that the government has. I would really urge people to just stay informed through local sites as well, people who were actually there and advocating.
These protests are expected to be a massive resistance movement in terms of being extremely peaceful and just demanding change for what's happening in the Trump administration. Are you concerned of MAGA supporters trying to instigate some type of violence or get some incendiary reactions out of all of you?
Absolutely, but this isn't the first time that this has happened. We all remember January 6th, and yet again, to make a greater point to your previous question, January 6th, several of those people were pardoned. And several of those people, that's not something that's normal or something that happens. January 6th was a riot. They stormed the Capitol, the White House. That was a riot. It was violence, and they didn't deploy the National Guard until most of the violence had subsided anyway. And now with peaceful protest in LA, those people are being met with violence and with the National Guard. So to anybody who's threatening to meet peaceful protesters with violence, that is a blatant threat to democracy. Everyone, regardless of political view, has the right to peacefully protest and speak up for what they believe in. And while I do not respect the opinions of MAGA, I respect the right to voice their opinions. And I expect to be met with the exact same respect.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you, what keeps you hopeful and motivated amid such dystopian times?
Absolutely. I think the community that I've seen, like I said, ever since I've started talking about this, I've had people reach out to me, people like you who just want to talk more about what's happening and talk more about the issues that are going on. The community that I've gained from this has been really impactful and powerful. I don't have any family who is with me in this fight for political change. So being able to meet friends and meet people at protests has been a great way for me to find chosen family and to find community. That's what's keeping me hopeful, and that's what's keeping me going during these times.
Once again, my guest is Emma Wozniak, a political activist. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
The Jeremiah Patterson Show is an independent news media platform. If you want to see more special reports like this, please consider becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack at TJPS News. When you become a paid subscriber, you'll get immediate access to exclusive content, opinion pieces, the upcoming Resistance podcast, and The More You Know, a series focused on diving deeper behind the headlines with historical context. According to one viewer who upgraded to a paid subscription, quote, "I like your deep dive style. There are many doing the quick news updates, which is helpful, but we need both." Another viewer said, "Jeremiah, you are a fantastic reporter and I truly value your work." I do this because it matters, because the investigative journalism is imperative, and most of all, I'm unabashed and unafraid to tell the truth. Upgrade now from free to paid for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. Welcome back. We've been continuing to follow here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show throughout this week the force and the violence that is being used against peaceful protesters in this country, against protesters who have not been doing anything wrong, frankly, essentially, except just exercising their First Amendment right. This is a video here that was posted on TikTok. It went viral. It is nearly 6 minutes long, but it shows what it was like in Los Angeles for someone who was just simply walking to their residence and they were shot at by law enforcement. Watch.
I want us to focus on this guy right there. Look at him. Trigger happy as fuck. So I just showed you him, right? Look at that. Oh, what's passing by? Where's our money going, right? Where are our tax dollars going, right? Right? Yeah. So we've got trigger happy fucking bitch over here. Look at. They're telling her to move, but that's a public sidewalk. They're telling her to move. Watch, if they shoot her. Holy fuck. Where'd it get you? Really, fuck off. She's not doing anything. Come on. We're moving, assholes. Ooh, you got it. Hang on. I just need to get out of their sight. Here. I got some supplies in my bag. Sit down. They shot her. Yeah. Point blank. I literally just got it on video. They're gonna shoot. We're moving! We're moving! Stop! She's injured! Come on. We gotta get across the street. Come on. We gotta go across the street. Where are you going?
I live here.
Okay.
I live here. I live here.
Come on. They just literally shot her point blank. No, she's not okay. Yeah, try right here, and let me just look at it, unless you want to go inside.
Watch your legs, officers!
Holy fuck, you guys. Okay,
Watch your legs, officers!
here.
I'm going!
Can I take a look at it?
Watch your legs!
Take a deep breath. It's okay.
Oh my God.
I know. You're okay. You're really brave for going over there, girl. They're being assholes tonight.
I just wanted to ask them, like, at what point
Are we gonna
will
stop
it end? Yeah, like,
No.
what will it take?
It doesn't matter. That's the whole point. These assholes are on a power trip right now. And who are they even? And like this girl is trying to pass through the barricade to go home, and they're telling her no.
Don't pass, they'll shoot you! They just shot me!
Joining me now for the interview is Alexandria. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi.
So in the video, we see that, of course, you have a woman. She's walking to her apartment peacefully, not interacting with law enforcement at all, and then she gets shot. Can you walk us through a little bit about what was happening before and then your reaction to go assist her?
Yeah. Um, right before they had kind of corralled everybody into this weird little residential area of downtown LA. And I was out there documenting through pictures and video. So I was making my way to this intersection where all the National Guard were stationed just to get some photos. And I actually saw this woman on my way up. She was kind of helping direct traffic because they were blocking off certain roads, but they were not blocking off the roads from allowing cars to drive. So there were like cars actively driving through the protests, and people were like kind of trying to make it a little bit safer and direct people where to go, get people out of the road, and just like everyone was trying to help each other. So actually, it's so funny because I have a picture of her like standing in the middle of the road, and behind her is the line of National Guard, like right before this happened, because we were walking down the street together.
Hmm.
And she had told me she lived in the area and was on her way home. And so we kind of parted ways, and I was on this side of the street and she was crossing, trying to go past where they were. And she's making her way over there, with her hands in the air, and is verbalizing to them what she's doing. The whole time they're just telling her that she needs to evacuate the area and that she um like just needs to leave basically. And she gets about 5 feet away from them and is shot in the stomach. In that
Hmm.
moment, it was a little confusing because they shine their flashlights as kind of a warning. Whenever you're out there and they're about to start open firing, they'll shine their flashlights at people. And you can see in the video he's shining his flashlight at her, but then he turns it off right as she gets to the area where she's shot. And so from what I was seeing, I was assuming that they were going to allow her to pass. And I feel like she kind of had that same thought and kind of continued to walk. And then an officer right next to him is the one that took the shot into her stomach. So after seeing that, and then like the other officers kind of looked around and they seemed to be communicating in some way, I kind of waited a second to see what they were going to do. And when none of them, attempted to help her in any way, I just ran over there and did my best to make sure that, she was okay and figure out what was going on. And they were continuing to threaten and shoot at us as I was trying to, render aid to her. And it was crazy.
Now, was this one of, I know because you just said that, they were continuing to threaten and stuff. Were you seeing other cases like this throughout the night where law enforcement was instigating the crowd or trying to get a reaction? And because we've gotten reports that, the protesters are peaceful, but the people that are causing, the instigation is law enforcement. Did you see any other scenes like that?
Oh, absolutely. All night long. When
Mm.
I started, right now it seems that our presence is just the biggest issue for them. Like I have had several experiences of just, standing in a crowd, on a sidewalk where kind of trying to stay out of the street because they're doing nothing to control traffic down there whatsoever. So everyone's kind of just gathering on the sidewalks, and they will gather on, the other side of the street or right next to us and just start shooting into the crowd just to get people to disperse. Like that
Mm,
is their method of action right now, is assuming violence so that people just don't even want to be out there. That is pretty much all I've seen.
mm. Are you concerned about the overstay of, National Guard as well as Marines in the city of LA?
Absolutely. There is an excessive amount of military presence in our city right now. I saw someone speaking yesterday about how there's more military members in the city of Los Angeles right now than there are stationed in Syria and Iraq combined in
Mm,
actual war zones. We have almost 5,000 troop members in our city right now. It is extremely excessive. There's no question about it. Um, and I think, when you factor in everything that we've been hearing from Governor Newsom and the fact that he did not request this presence
mhm,
in any way, shape, or form and has asked it to be rescinded multiple times. It was found illegal in courts
mhm.
yesterday, and it is still being fought. Like there's no question about the validity of any of this in my mind at all.
Lastly, I wanted to get your opinion on what Donald Trump has said about protests in America, saying that any protesters will essentially be met with heavy force. This is a First Amendment right granted to all of us in the Constitution. What do you make of the presence of the military as well as him saying stuff like that to intimidate people not to protest?
I think what's going on in LA right now is a test to see how much the people will allow to continue. I think we have seen time and time again that he follows up on the crazy things he says. Like everyone hears these things, it's like, oh my goodness, like that's so crazy. Why would he say that? And then he does it and we're
Yeah.
surprised. We have seen him follow through on his promises time and time again. And I think if we do not show that we are not going to allow this to continue in LA first, it's going to spread throughout the country. We've already heard the sheriffs in Florida. I don't know if you've seen that, his press conference saying,
Mhm.
we will kill you. We
Yeah.
are being threatened by our military, by our president, by our law enforcement. Our government, it's all out of control right now in every facet. I think this is the point where people have to realize, we're either going to do something or we're going to turn around one day and it's too late.
Mm. Once again, my guest is Alexandria. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the story. That is what's most important right now. We want to get all eyes on this. So thank you.
Again, two influential interviews here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Just very, very powerful stories. The first interview there being with Emma, who is a political activist, and then the second one being with Alexandria, speaking about that situation that happened in Los Angeles. Just once again, very, very powerful interviews, both inspiring but also emotional and inspiring and empowering in a sense, as well as we're continuing to follow the news of these nationwide protests that are happening all across the country. But we're actively seeing Donald Trump, the president of the United States, using the military and other officials, like in Florida, using menacing words to get people not to protest, to threaten people to stay home so that there is no dissent, so that there's no one speaking out about the atrocities that this administration is committing. They're trying to intimidate people not to protest by saying stuff like this, by doing stuff like having the military out and having images like this surface, where you have U.S. Marines detaining individuals. The goal is intimidation. The goal is to get you to stay home. The goal is to get you as the public, as the citizenry, to capitulate, to give up, to grow tired and to isolate and to stop trying to be active and to stop engaging. But it is when you do that that they win. Because without mass resistance, authoritarianism wins. You cannot have a mass resistance movement and actively continue to have an authoritarian government. It does not work because the people always win. Sometimes it takes time, as we've learned throughout history, and as I've covered extensively on this show for months and for years. Sometimes it does take time, but mass resistance always defeats authoritarianism. Eyes open, heads up, stay focused. We've got work to do here. Once again, all those protests are scheduled all across the country today, nearly 2,000 of them. Just an incredible moment right now in the history of this country as we're facing a wannabe dictator, authoritarian leader, exploit our military for his personal purposes. Thank you for watching this episode on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. I really hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as share this episode with a family or friend. You can support my work by donating financially, as this is independent journalism, and we do rely on your donations to continue this crucial work. These are the ways to do that. You can also become a paid subscriber to my Substack for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. On other ways to stay connected to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, you can follow me on Blue Sky and Substack at TJPS News. And if you want to email me with questions, concerns, or just a statement that you have to say, anything, pictures about the protest, videos about the protest, you can email me tjpsnews@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to feature it here on the show. Thank you everyone so much. I have another report coming up on what's going on right now in Iran with Israel, as Israel has just started a war, and the United States is now involved with this. So that's going to be coming up on the Jeremiah Patterson Show soon. I got some interviews for that and some historical context, all that coming and more later today. So stay tuned and spread the word. Remember, eyes open, heads up, stay focused.